Wouldn't you say that it's true that in most cases you want to purchase from someone you trust? Sure, in some cases you don't have that luxury, but if you have the luxury of choice between multiple different vendors and multiple different providers, typically you're going to trust that person who really understands your pain and understands the actual way to solve it. Now, as kind of a barrier or a gateway to kind of getting that trust level built up, they really have to demonstrate they know your pain. In a lot of cases, what this looks like is somebody who's experienced what you've gone through personally, or they can relate because they are so experienced in that field. They know exactly what it is you're suffering from. Today, we're going to talk about a framework that you can use within the software and just generally the B2B space, where you can literally leverage this pain, agitate it properly, really get into the mind of the customer and help them see that you're an advocate for them and you're helping them out in this process. And most importantly, you're going to point them to the right solution, whether or not it's what you're offering or not. Okay, with that, let's dive in. So what we're talking about here really is the PASS framework, or pain, agitate, solve, pain, agitate, solution. The concept here is that you're going to be asking questions to really kind of draw it out of someone as to what their pain is and what their experience has been with that pain. Now, this may seem like a mild form of torture, but one of the challenges that we have a lot of times, especially in the software space, but just generally is B2B sales, is we're going to end up kind of selling too quickly. We might end up jumping into the conversation without actually understanding and listening to what somebody is actually going through. What I recommend is that you kind of think of it as people being in one of two positions. And so out of these two positions, the first one is going to be someone who's not actually suffering the pain, but they're looking at and they're kind of window shopping, if you will, for a solution. As much as you can, you want to ideally separate these folks and move them more toward a drip campaign type of a style. Maybe you're going to follow up with them personally, use an email drip campaign, offer collateral, newsletters, this kind of a thing. Now, that second category of person typically is going to be experiencing pain. Now, one of the challenges, though, is they may be somewhat cynical or they may be busy, and you're just going to have to kind of dig in order to really get to the root of what that pain is and whether or not you can provide a solution. Now, this is really the key to this PASS framework is, are you really thinking at the back of your mind, I want what's best for this other person. I want what's best for their company. Whenever you're getting into the pain, you really want to listen, and you will really need to kind of have a curious thought process at your core. Really try to actually genuinely understand. Even though you may be really dependent on getting that next sale or getting some new revenue to come in, one of the most literally obvious things you can do is transmit that to the other person by not listening and by not getting into the weeds about their pain. And a lot of times what that ends up translating to is starting to sell and starting to talk a lot before the customer has really explained what their pains are. So it's really helpful to have great questions in your arsenal. And this particular article from HubSpot goes into quite a few of those. Now you can see that they're kind of talking, and let me zoom this in a little bit now. They're talking about essentially asking these kind of open-ended questions. And so maybe it's tell me more about XYZ. And usually kind of as a starting place, it's XYZ scenario, and you got in touch with us because it sounds like you're experiencing da-da-da-da. Or we're getting in touch with you because we believe you may be experiencing ABC. Would you say that generally that's causing some concern for you? Or is that something that you guys are looking at addressing or what have you? And then you kind of just dig in and you say, essentially, can you elaborate on how you're planning on fixing this, or how this has impacted your company, or what your plans are for the future and how this is getting in the way? Generally speaking, you can ask them things like, have you tried to solve this already? And what has your approach been? This can be really, really helpful because a lot of times if somebody's experiencing pain, they've already tried to address it, and maybe they've had a failure or two along the way. And so if you go right into selling something that they actually have already tried, you're really going to lose a lot of credibility right out of the gate. Now, another thing that you can think about here is asking them not just maybe what they've tried and whether they've had trouble with a certain approach, but also kind of asking them how serious they are about addressing it. If you had a solution that you knew could solve this problem and money wasn't an issue, would you be looking to do that in the near term? Or what would your timeline look like? And so generally you want to use these kind of pain and agitate questions to lead you toward qualification. Normally you can take these kind of open-ended questions that you're seeing on the screen and you can pair them together and get a good sense of how to kind of do this, frankly, by failing sometimes and kind of practicing and really just trying to be genuine at the end of the day. You're talking to another human being and you're just trying to help them out. I mean, think about it. That should come naturally. And really, that's what your goal is in these conversations. Now, these conversations can happen not just over phone, but over email and over other forms of, interaction that you're going to have. But ultimately, the key takeaway here from this kind of second scenario where somebody is experiencing pain is you want to have this kind of concept of being very curious, getting into the pain, agitating it, and then moving toward qualification and then looking at solving the problem. Now, ideally, you've got some kind of an offer that makes sense. And the offer doesn't have to be a close. It can be something like a discovery, or it could be a planning and proposal session, or something like that. Something soft may work really well. And if somebody's just window shopping, you also ideally will have an offer for them that's something like a checklist or best practices, and then a commitment from you to stay in touch in 6 to 12 months. Certainly, this is something that has worked incredibly well for me personally and for our team whenever we're going after these really decently, if not very well qualified leads and looking to establish ourselves as the front runner of making a solution possible for that particular lead. We hope that this video has been helpful. As always, if you enjoyed this content, if you would just smash that like button, hit subscribe if you'd like to see more of these videos, and we will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching and bye for now.